And so I stood up at the end of his lecture, and I gave him a letter which I had written to him explaining why this graft was bogus. And I said to him, this graft is a fraud. You are participating in a fraud by using material of this kind, which has long been discredited. And the fact that you're still using it is an extremely serious matter. And he was very upset, and he said, oh, but to use the word fraud, that's a very unparliamentary word, you shouldn't use it. But he had absolutely no way of answering the point I had made.
Lord Christopher Monckton is our guest. I want to, in layman's terms, sir, go over the state of the attempt at world government, at getting 190 nations lined up to sign on to a private UN/World Bank IMF dictatorship where we pay Maurice Strong and Al Gore and David Rockefeller for carbon credits. I was talking to Lord Monckton during the break about some of the things I want to cover in the time we have left with him in this hour. How they're trying to implement this global government takeover by stealth right now. Schwarzenegger says they're going to take over counties, cities, and states. That's already going on. But then I said, I also want to talk about how I keep seeing UN police assault or grab reporters that ask questions, even accredited reporters. And live on Fox News, the maker of Al Gore, Not Evil, Just Wrong, which is really a whitewash, by the way. He is pure evil. He's a fraud. He knows he's a would-be slave master. That guy got hit in the head by a bottle. I mean, they are really attacking people. And Lord Monckton told me he was assaulted by a police officer, knocked to the ground, and had to have the attention of a medic. So, Lord Monckton, you described it. Luckily, I brought up the point of the assaults of people that don't follow the new Hitlerian religion. But tell us what happened to yourself and others.
Well, I was with Senator Steve Fielding from Australia and other members of the group from the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, which is a sensible environmental pressure group. And we were all accredited members of this conference. We were entitled to go into the conference. However, yesterday and again today, we were turned away by the UN on the flimsiest grounds because there had been a demonstration by members of other non-governmental organizations totally unconnected with us. Demonstrations, in fact, in a completely opposite direction from us. But they therefore decided they would exclude everyone, even those whom they had invited, as they had us, and accredited to this conference. So when it was plain that we weren't going to be allowed in, the police said, would you please leave? And they began manhandling me. So I said, I put my hands in my pockets. First thing you should do, I was trained in this by the John Ambulance years ago, if the police start to get scratchy, as they do. This is the Danish police under orders from the UN. That's the way it works. This new world government is already taking shape. They manhandled me physically, and I said, you will take your hands off me. And they then did, and the policeman said, you're a very unpleasant man. I said, no, I'm just not used to being manhandled, and please don't do it. And I went where he wanted me to go, turned my back on him and began to walk away, and he hit me very hard from behind, knocking me to the ground and knocking me out.
Excuse me, sir. A member of the House of Lords, the 3rd Viscount of Monckton and Brenchley, and you're being assaulted by UN-controlled thugs attacked from behind. Again, no one is safe from this tyranny.
No, that's right. It was a very disfiguring episode. And I had done nothing to provoke this except to say, please don't manhandle me. There was no need for that. We were on our way.
So he knocked you out. I mean, you were knocked unconscious.
And then apparently, I'm told, because I was then out for, I don't know how long I was out for, but anyway, when I came round, there were lots of concerned faces standing around. And apparently, while I'd been knocked out, so my friends who were around me, one of them kindly cradling my head to stop it being banging on the ground again, they were saying, oh, yes, he's just making it up. He's just faking it. Anyway, the excellent equivalent of John Ambulance, the Danish volunteer ambulance men, came and took me away and looked after me in their ambulance for 20 minutes and put a blanket on me and warmed me up and gave me some water to drink and checked my pulse and made sure I was coherent and all right again. They were very, very good, and I made a wee donation to their fund, because although they're funded by the state, they need to get better equipment.
But excuse me, sir. I mean, to be clear here, you were assaulted from behind by a Danish thug, a Danish a member of the government, a police officer, and then they did the.
That's right. He was a police officer who, I think, let's be fair to them, they were under pressure from the very nasty goons who are the UN police force. The Danish police have just become more and more twitchy as this conference has gone on. The friction between them.
And they've also used George Soros, UN.
Is very, very clear.
I
do feel some sympathy for the Danish police here. And this poor chap, he just didn't know where to turn. In the end, he just decided he would take a swipe at me and unfortunately knocked me to the ground and knocked me out.
Did he hit you with a billy club in the head, sir?
No. It was just, he had a gloved hand and he pushed me a little too hard in the back and knocked me flying. So let's not kind of sort of overstate this. It was a pretty minor incident.
But if you did that to him, you'd be up on attempted murder charges.
I would be locked up for assaulting a police officer, no doubt about it at all, and I'd be sent home in disgrace and never allowed back into Denmark again. He will get off scot-free and probably be given a promotion. That's the way it now is. So I do feel some sympathy to him. He was under a lot of pressure from them, and of course we had been trying to get into the conference, so he was under a certain amount of pressure.
All right, Lord Monckton, stay there. I want to get into all the other areas to cover in a long segment coming up. Absolutely amazing. We've got your website up on screen. Well, I had to squeeze the information out of Lord Monckton. He's too gentlemanly to really tell you what happened to him, but he's cut up and really got thrashed to the ground bad. And he is filing a complaint through someone he knows in the Danish parliament. And we need to not forgive police when they assault us from behind, because if this is allowed to continue, next they'll be snatching and grabbing us like what happened at the G20 a few months ago, where uniformed military were snatching and grabbing peaceful protesters off the streets. Lord Monckton, I know you don't want to spend too much more time on this, but finishing up, any other comments about how you were assaulted?
Well, I think we're covering quite a lot of ground there, starting off with, I think what we must put into perspective is a relatively small incident. Okay, yes, I'm a peer of the realm, but no, policemen shouldn't be going around bashing people in the back. But I think the poor guy hadn't realized that he sort of overdid it a bit. He hadn't intended to knock me to the ground. It was just unfortunate that I was at a particular position where, when he hit me, I tripped over and fell flat on my face. I don't think he meant it. I do think he should have, having been warned not to put his hands on me, he shouldn't have done that. And I think in due course he will be disciplined and probably put down a rank for a year or two to remind him that you don't treat people that way. And so let's not over-magnify that. And I do feel a lot of sympathy for the Danish police in that they are clearly being under orders from these very, very nasty, flinty-faced goons of the UN security force, who are hated by absolutely everybody who's come into contact with them. They are very spooky people indeed. And it is quite unfortunate that the UN, when it runs these conferences, doesn't allow the local police to run the show. It sends its own dreadful people in. And they are really hated and feared now. And those are the ones I ultimately hold responsible for the events we've seen. The Danish police laying in not just to our side, to be fair, but also to demonstrators from the other side with truncheons. They've been bashing them. And that's also been shown on television worldwide. And it has led me and others to comment that perhaps the Danes and the UN don't quite understand what being in a democracy is all about. So moving on from that, then to Schwarzenegger and him saying that this is such a pressing problem that he's going to circumvent the government, I don't think he'll get away with that. He, too, could find himself impeached if he tries to go against the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution is there, and we now see what an important document it is, regarded by Obama and his people, and they said this during the election campaign, as a piece of paper that is now an obstacle to what the left wishes to achieve internationally. And Schwarzenegger, although he's nominally a Republican, is clearly more and more identifying himself with the, effectively, and I'm going to use the word, the communist left that are now running America and much else in the world. And I think what we have to do is to say that if anybody breaks the law in the way that Schwarzenegger is supposed to do, then however high and senior they may be in their local area, they will be taken to task and taken, if necessary, to court for that. So So I don't think that he's going to get away with that. I think that's mere rodomontade of the sort that you get at these conferences. They overstate everything to the nth degree, much as the UN has been doing all along about the climate. And so we shouldn't get too excited by that. If he tries to do anything of that kind, he will get stopped eventually. Because
well, yes, sir, but I mean, Lord Monckton, here's a quick example. He couldn't get the legislature of California to pass taxes on all televisions and ban them above 40 inches, saying he's the Gruppenführer, the group Führer. He's going to decide as the Gauleiter what type of TV you can have. So he just ordered the California Department of Energy to do it by fiat. Now he is calling for a summit of mayors, and the UN had a summit of mayors there, to have the cities levy the taxes. A bunch of other U.S. cities are doing this.